Where in California are you located?
So I'm in the Silicon Valley.
Okay.
So the Bay Area. That's where I was kind of born and raised. Yeah, you know, where everything works at a push of a button, supposedly. Yeah, there.
I I know it's gonna sound, I don't think this is the biggest thing on someone's mind, but I was so impressed with Walmarts in California versus
Oh,
Walmarts in Alabama.
really?
Yes,
I've
I
been
got
to both.
okay. I got
I've been to
beeped.
both.
I walked in and I forgot to get a cart, like one of the little
Uh,
handheld cart. I thought I'd be able to walk in and grab one, and they didn't have it. So I turned around and I got beeped for walking out the entrance. And
oh,
yeah, and I looked like I was in a foreign country. I was like, what in the world is happening? Like I froze up. But that was pretty
yeah.
interesting to see because we don't have that over here.
They don't have like a security, Alabama?
They do,
Is
but
that
not
what?
yeah, like I went through the entrance door to leave and it beat me for going out the wrong way. And I was so impressed by
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally threw me off. And then whenever I was walking through the store, I'd hear other people get beeped and I'm like, ah, I got them. Not just me. Yeah.
You, you know what cracks me up is like no matter where you are in the world, you can always depend on a Walmart because
Yeah.
it's gonna look the same. It's gonna, you
Same
know,
layout.
you're gonna be able to buy milk and apples to underwear and socks.
Yeah.
And then there's this like underlying like shame, like I shop out at Walmart
But everybody
or I
does.
get but everybody does. And so I'm
Yeah.
laughing now because as soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah, when was the last time I went to the Walmart? And I'm like, oh, they put a brand new Nordstrom's rack next to the Walmart. So like now the world is
Yeah.
starting to see how we really live. We want nice things, but we want to keep it at a low cost and screw all the labels and all the people that are making billions off of the same stuff that gets put together the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Same quality of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's just you just kind of have to like and thank God there's kind of a Walmart because everything's so expensive.
Yeah. I have no
So
shame going
yeah,
to Walmart. I'm a Target guy, but I still have.
oh, that's a bad word right now.
Is it? Oh, I have.
Target.
Oh, I haven't read anything about Target. Is there something going on with that?
Well, it was a big old deal. It had to do with uh the a fashion designer had a Target, I guess, started to promote LGBT trans
Yep, I see it.
and
LGBTQ.
same like with the Bud Light, and they lost billions. Like I think $9 a share the other day. They were in a panic, and it's. I kind of sit back and watch all these people that don't know what the rest of the world lives through, what it's really like to be an American in the United
Yeah,
States, and what's really important. And all of us are important. It's just you just see how these big massive companies also they kind of set set the stage on what we get to buy, what's in style. And
yeah.
it's like, no, it's the people. When did this ever happen? So yeah, I just got really political there. So
No, I'm reading it right now. Target pulls some LGBTQ plus merchandise ahead of Pride Month. Uh, Activist calls for new strategies to promote equality after Target back. Okay, scratch everything I said about Target. So Bud Light, I see Bud Light, Target, and New Era.
uh-huh.
Okay, well, take off my New Era hat too. Um, wow, we're off to a good start here. All right, so let's just get into the rapid fire questions. Let's go ahead and get started with this.
All right.
First
Okay.
question for you: book
Okay.
recommendation.
Ooh, probably the Alchemist one.
That one gets thrown out a
I
lot.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, it's a really other good. You oof, it is so hard to write a book. I feel like really bad not having like a ton of names right now, but I'm just gonna look right here. Okay, here's a good one. Here's one that I have and I read all the time is The Body Keeps Score.
Another
This
very
is
good
a
book.
really, yeah, that is a
So
very
wait a
good
minute,
book.
wait a minute. Hold that book up.
Can you see it?
It was blurred.
Oh, it's because of the Zoom thing, but it's
I was like, is that a Target? That's a Target sticker on your book.
oh shit. Yeah. That's priceless. But at least it was 20% off. Oh, you're good.
All
You got
right.
a good eye right there.
Heat's
Yeah.
back on you now. Yep.
Damn it. Yeah. This was probably like it was quite a while ago. Yeah. So I would say definitely those two are probably my top pick. And I usually go for books that are I love true stories.
Hmm.
I love real life struggle, not the made up stuff. It's great to, you know,
Yeah.
I guess partake in that. But no, I like the real, like real life people's struggles and like what they've had to overcome. I find the most helpful and inspirational, and it just like touches the soul.
You just spoke to what the Shadows podcast is all about. It's
Really?
perfect.
Oh,
Very
good.
well said. Yeah. Well said. Well
There you
said.
go. That should help my target.
There you go. What is a fear that you have?
Uh, that I well, I would say a fear. Shoot, I'm always fighting fear. Um, Probably the biggest one would have been using my voice, speaking my truth.
Mm,
It was like
okay.
a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. What is one instance you look back and you're like you felt like that hindered you?
Oh, uh, throughout my life because I didn't really understand what the truth really was. Because in my situation, for your audiences that's listening, I was kind of well, I wasn't kind of, I was basically brainwashed, hijacked away from my mom, and it took 40 years to unravel. So when you're a kid from divorce and you're trying to figure out to me, because when you're growing up in a it's just a lot of it's I call it loving dysfunction. It's really hard to know who you are.
Yeah.
And so finally figuring it all out and owning the part of my story that is really difficult for parents to grasp and um, is my truth, and is as hard as it is, I own it because it's kind of like I defied the odds, and being able to stand in that power of knowing who you are and who you aren't. It's freedom,
Yeah.
because we will stay silent to protect the ones we love because it's how we've been programmed. And once we understand that, that's like the breakaway.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
And yeah, we'll definitely get into that, like you said, that 40-year journey. What is a song on your workout playlist that you'd be afraid for anybody else to know?
Ready? Oh god. Okay. This is the SOS band, and it's called Take Your Time, Do It Right.
Okay.
And it's a good, like, if you pulled it up right now and played it, it's a good song. It's just not something like, it's probably something that I love to hear it. Uh, I play it in
Oh,
my
take your
car, but
time.
that's just it.
Oh, my computer picked up that I have music playing. Okay.
So yeah, it's just an old school song, and it just makes me feel happy, and uh, it motivates you because it's just you're on your own timeline. So I
Okay.
like it. Yeah.
Perfect vacation for you would be to where?
Uh, Anywhere with my son, even at Walmart or Target.
There you go. There you go. All right.
No, that was actually, yeah, that was a good answer. But honestly, just anywhere laughing too.
Yeah.
Just laughing. I don't need a tropical, fancy. Europe vacation with all the no.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Simple things. All right. I'd love to ask this question. Dinner for three, three historical figures no longer with us. Who do you break bread with?
Well, Jesus, definitely.
Okay. I was like, Jesus, or was that the reaction to it? Okay.
I
So,
would say Jesus, me, Jesus, and holy moly, that's a good one. Oh, can't be here anymore. Me, Jesus, and how about oh, 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 I couldn't pick her because there would be like two Jesuses.
well, no, you can. Who was it?
My first thought was uh the lady that oh my god, oh my gosh, now I can't even remember her name. Uh Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa. Okay.
Mother Teresa, that would be too what if I cussed or something? That would be hard.
Yeah,
But
you have.
yeah, let's just
Yeah, have
yeah,
to be on your
yeah,
p's and q's with that group.
yeah. I would want to throw someone in there that was very not Mother Teresa, but had passed away, but very interesting. And just to have Jesus there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you have survived the rapid fires, and now we'll get into your journey. So, tell our listeners out there, where did you grow up? Because I know you have a very interesting childhood story. So, if you don't mind, I take that
I
question
grew up
back. Your story is a little different. Tell us about your childhood.
okay. It's like Cinderella, basically, right? Kid from divorce. And this is I think my childhood is very it is cautionary as it is. It's I think there's a lot of kids that are and have gone through similar uh you know bad things that happen in childhood. So for me, I was alienated from my own mother by my stepmom, and my dad didn't know to the extent. I grew up watching um let's just say the only way a step parent can get away with this is if a parent allows them.
How old were
So
you?
I spent more time with my stepmom between 7 and 13. So for your audience who doesn't know, like what do you mean alienated? My stepmom actually brainwashed me. So it's like the evil stepmom. It's everything about what she did and what happened to me is so wrong and very it's like I call it the trifecta of children with divorce. So when your parents get divorced, that's a hit. And we don't talk about that, right? Well, how does that hit affect us throughout life? And then when your parents get remarried and they don't get along, co-parent, and they marry someone else, and that wife or spouse is intrusive, is jealous, needs control, will hurt and do anything to your ex or your child to make themselves feel better. And that's what she picked on the wrong little girl because it took me 40 years and in that process of my childhood. So I basically grew up believing false accusations about myself, my mom, my parents. Both my parents came here from two different countries
Hmm.
legally so that I could be illegally alienated. So because I'm Latina, so I have this joke where it's like you can't really alienate a Latina. There's too many of us. So like Cinderella, instead of like the prince and all the, the fairy godmother, I got the aunts, the uncles. So everything that went wrong also went right. It just took a long time to put all the pieces together, but it also like I can look back at my life and go, that that's why that happened. So it's basically my story is basically a manual for every parent going through divorce or is about to get remarried, what not to do.
Yeah. How were your parents right when they first got divorced?
Excuse me?
How were your
I didn't
parents
have
when
to.
they first got divorced?
Oh, like all parents, just uh, stressed out, sad. my mom was the one who wanted the divorce. So I think it's harder for the person not wanting the divorce or shocked by the divorce. So it's a different hit. So I was very attached to my dad, and I was only 4 when my parents divorced. So
Okay.
I don't remember them together.
Right.
But what I remember, it was just always them pointing the finger. So there's always a little bit of alienation in everybody's home, no matter what. But this kind comes specifically from divorce. So, you know, whether it's a mother or a father, um, I think my dad was just trying to do everything he could to uh, feel good or help me feel good. They had the same goal, just different
Yeah.
methods. So, yeah, and kids, we pick up on that no matter what the doctors say or what people try to normalize. No, there is nothing normal about divorce other than it sucks. And the
Yep.
only way to save, to have a healthy divorce, is parents from the get-go understand, okay, our marriage is over, but our attachment to our kids is never.
Yeah. And when did your stepmother get into the picture?
I was about 7.5, and she just kind of showed up, kind of like my stepdad. And right off the bat, there were probably red flags. As a kid, I wouldn't know, right? I wouldn't know, but she was very covert. She she was very opinionated, and my dad, being a man, thinking in old school, thinking that every woman wants to be a mom or wants to be a stepmom. That's not true. And dads have to work. So I grew up hearing that narrative, your father's always working. And yeah, somebody has to work. Yeah, dad's work. That's not abusive. That's helping. And so there's so many things that go into play when you introduce someone to your kid, or parents need to like make a pact that you also want to seek out healthy people. And so it's the parents that usually jump into one relationship after the other because they're not healed from their divorce. And that's what happened to my dad.
Beauty of hindsight is we can look back on things that happened, especially in our childhood, and we can grow from it. We can learn from it, not let history repeat itself. When you said that you were brainwashed by your stepmother, what were some of the things she did that got in your head?
Well, the biggest thing she did was that she actually wrote a script that started from my conception all the way from my birth, all the way to as far as she could take it. It's like she wanted me to believe that I was kicking my mom from the inside of her belly, that my mom didn't want me, that
Wow.
both my parents were too busy to care about myself. Everything that she could do to obliterate my relationship with my mom and keep me from telling me that my father was the only one who loved me. So the way it worked for me was that I stayed silent to protect my dad. And there was all kinds of wrong that went on between ages 7 and 13. And we can go into that later, but yeah, she just in order for her to feel better, she had to lie and make up the most deplorable stuff that's not that much different from what a lot of stepmoms or frustrated stepmoms write online.
Yeah.
Um, because they need to feel like they're the better woman, they're the better womb, they will have better kids than their ex and their husband. It derives from an insecurity and a lack of confidence, because no loving step parent would hurt a child that they are married to that man. You cannot, and there's a big And I want to make sure everyone hears this. You cannot love your husband and hate their child. You can't. People there's a saying, oh, you can nacho it. No. Could you love a woman, give her everything, work your butt off, knowing that she doesn't like your offspring because you had a past?
I couldn't even
Like,
imagine.
no, no, absolutely not. And
Yeah.
so this type of normalization is what is wrong, and what I'm doing is putting it in the light and saying, okay, look, this has got to stop. All of
Yeah.
the parenting, all of the bad fighting, all of it. There is no time for it. This is what the world wants because it keeps everybody in a panic state, and we're in a panic state. We don't have clear choices. It's scary. You're like raising your kid out in the battlefield.
Yeah. You mentioned 7 to 13 was those,
Mm-hmm.
darker times. What was
Mm-hmm.
what was something of what everybody has their tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
What was yours during that time from where you look back and that was like your darkest moment?
Mm-hmm. I think so, like for me, that was sustained trauma. So what I mean by sustained, it never stops, and
Right.
it kind of never really did for a long time, but I would suppress and ignore, push things down. But for me, oh God, in those times, because you're talking the worst of the worst happened, right? I was violated 3 different times by 3 different men. That was
Oh.
hard. I don't even know if I could. I mean, the whole thing was hard.
And I'm assuming your father wasn't privy to any of this.
No, and when he
Hmm.
did, like all the men that violated me all died before I was 15. That still doesn't
What in the
negate the
world?
fact that yeah, that's still, yeah, I know I have a really close relationship with Jesus. That's why I said I would have to interview them right
Yeah.
away. Um, what's interesting, I suppose, it's at any time a child, and this happened throughout my childhood, even into my teen years, because I remember I would ski in my pants. I was so scared too. By the time I was 13, it was like I flipped and I was so angry. So I guess anytime I saw the injustice that was happening, I didn't have the words, but my body knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
So when my dad would try to stick up for me, but he couldn't, because stepmom was like, it's either you or your daughter. I think that moment, as many times as that happened, because it's like, even when I say it, I can viscerally feel like, ooh, a part of me just wants to like clock her, right? Because no, every kid needs to know, just because your parent maybe weak in a way because they have other kids, they feel stuck. Don't let anybody devalue you. No child should ever feel this. So I suppose, because back then they didn't even know that alienation like this was an issue. So I suppose anytime I had to watch my parents not know and let this other person have so much access to me and who hated me. So that was it right there.
When was and first of all, thank you for sharing that. When was the point where you blew the whistle and finally spoke up to what she was doing?
Let's just say I always tried. And because it was disguised as you're just gaslighting, it was like, that's just typical, Lisa, typical child of divorce, just like what a lot of stepmoms
Yeah.
say. Oh, they act just like the mother. Oh, no, we're acting this way because something's wrong.
Yeah.
So what was it? Uh, well, it took a long time. When I read what she had wrote back when back between the ages of 7 and 13, that script, I remembered it at about 44 years old. I had asked my dad, I had a trigger, and I asked my dad, I need the proof. He was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I referred to it as proof. I remembered, and I just said, I don't know if it's still there. And I'm crying. I'm not like, I'm triggered and I'm like panicked because I'm like, I can't believe I remember it. She fucking wrote all this. I remember. And my dad went to, I said, go check her nightstand in your bedroom. He went to go set, check. This was like 17 to 20 years later. She still kept that disgusting narrative that changed the course of my life and attachment system to my parents. So my dad brings it to me. I have it here too.
Yeah.
It's people have studied it. Um, and I remember reading it. And by this time, I already had a son raised and he's in college, and I'm looking at it. And at the time, I was still married to my husband for like, it was over, 17, 20 years. And I look at this thing and I'm like, holy, can I cuss?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Every
yeah.
word, holy this is a mind. I was fucking mind raped. Holy, like so this, the moment I read it, it was like, oh my God. And I knew something went wrong. And I also knew that I got the bitch, right? Checkmate. But now what do I do? So I go to my doctor, my psychologist at the time, and I'm like, here it is. Like, and she knew my history. Because I was always trying to figure things out. And because there's no way I could explain this evil, because my mom and I were constantly, if I wasn't estranged from her, I didn't want to be around her. And even my dad would go, that's your mother. And I would be like, no. And because we've normalized erasing our parents, how many kids are alienated and estranged, right?
Mhm.
So not only did this validate my stepmom's evil, but it also showed the lack of awareness. So think about you are like the scapegoat of your family. You are, ousted because you had all these just loud behaviors because it's all you. And then you flip it, you stay married, you raise your son who's in college, and you finally
Yeah.
get the like, I knew it. And so my psychologist right off the bat said, I don't know if we can help you. I'm like, what? What do you mean? What the hell happened? And so my mom read it, and the minute she read it, she flipped. She did her best to flip her parenting, and we're good now, but it was a process
Yeah.
because she threw up. She couldn't, the minute she read what I read, I think she looked within at her own parenting and saw, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think her apology letter right now has over 40,000 hits on TikTok.
Oh wow.
Because people are like, why would your mom apologize? She's the parent that was abused. That's not how it works, parents. It takes two people. And I know you don't like to hear this. Well, guess what? The kids have been saying this for years. And we're losing relationships with our fathers. And I think a lot has to do with not just our fathers, but their spouses who have the problem. And
Yeah.
that fathers' rights movements don't like that. But if you want a relationship with your kids, you're going to have to learn to protect even the kids. Because if that wife is trying to alienate you in your marriage before you have kids, or will alienate, your grandkids, and say you have kids, I don't like my mother-in-law. I don't want you to take the kids, John. Don't take the kids to see your mother or your father. Guys have to know right then that lady is going to completely alienate you from your own kids. If they say that while you're married, one, make sure that you have everything in line, because from my understanding, this type of pathology, this type of person that would have kids only to uh play, Russian roulette with their future, needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, and something I want to ask you about, there's a lot to unpack there. First, the co-parenting piece, talking
Yeah.
about, going through a divorce. Talk to our audience about, in your opinion, why, uh, even though I may be super mad at you, you need to refrain from, bad mouthing and just tarnishing the name of that parent to their kids. Like, I get it. People listening to this have probably, I'm sure we have listeners who go through divorces, or
Yes.
going to go through one. But why is it so important to fight that temptation of bad mouthing that other parent when you have your kid in your presence? And by the way, I'm not telling anybody how to parent. I'm just saying,
Right. There is a well, one, there's a biological, and there's also a reason, because your children's bodies and brains are growing rapidly. So you have to think of them like they have a brand new hard drive, right? It's brand new. They only have the experience that they have with their parents. So because this is how you brainwash a child, this is why it was so easy for my stepmom to do what she did. I had no other experience. So everything negative that your child experiences, whether it's, especially if it's like coming from a parent, that's going to stick. That's part of their foundation. And that does not get erased. It can get, you can build new memories and you can move through that kind of trauma. But that is the number reason why, is because you will change their perspective, and nobody has the right to do.
yeah, and their minds are developing at such a rapid pace at that age too.
Yeah.
What
And you
about?
can't, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, what about parents who lean on their kids for comfort?
And
And
oh, that's not appropriate. That is too much for a child. Children are not meant to be therapists. They are meant to be nurtured, loved, supported, guided. And when that flips, and that often happens in divorce, because it happened to me. And I love my dad, has a lot of empathy, but he would complain and just share, complain, share, dump, whatever you want to call it. It's really uncomfortable, because as a kid, you don't even know how to make space for yourself. And the minute we have to worry about our parents, we automatically, it's like you're teaching us to take care of that parent, and that creates codependence.
yeah, I just want chicken nuggets and a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, like just
Yeah,
let me be a kid. Like I don't know. Like I'm sorry you're crying. This is uncomfortable. Now you're not available to support and protect me, which is biologically your job. So my brain is now gonna shut off, because in a way that's what happens. The kid gets a little bit of anxiety. I don't want to say or hurt the right thing, but now I'm uncomfortable in my own body. How do I process this? And if I can't, I'm gonna push it down, and boom, there is the first sign of, and that's how codependency starts. And that's how I mean, it's no game. It's not like a video game where you can go back, delete. This is real life, and
yeah,
this is exactly what happens. And my book and truth and the facts help qualify me to kind of say, time out. It's 2023. We're using the same division patterns we have since the beginning.
yeah.
It's
And
not working.
so much reading and studying I've done, especially since I've started to, dabble and just be so intrigued by mental health and our psychology in general, is that, and kind of the conclusion I've got from a lot of these readings is that, and from talking to people on here, is that you can be going through a divorce with someone right now. You can lean on your kid. You can use your kid as a pawn. You can pit them against the other parent, like the whole, hey, don't tell your mother this, but have those
Right.
conversations all day long. It's going to be impressionable on your kid. It's going to paint a picture, and or the likelihood of that happening is significantly higher. But then what's going to happen is they get older, and you may win the battle, but you don't necessarily win the war. And they get older, and they're going to come to the realization of, oh my gosh, my mom played me for 20 years, or my mom played me during that significant event, and my father went on a downward spiral, and I sided against him because of what my mom was saying. And then you lose time in these
Yes.
huge, relationships in your life that help mold and shape you. And it's just really sad to see when I hear about it, or see it or read about it from parents who have to go that route because they're hurt. And that's why I love the quote. Give Shay Sparks credit because she said it on here first, but hurt people, and
Yeah,
including their children when they think they're protecting them at times. So,
yeah, it's yeah.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, it's no joke. I mean, to hurt people. And it's also like, okay, that's your kid. If you it's the lack of awareness.
Yeah.
If you lack awareness, if you really think you are the perfect parent and you've done nothing wrong, because I was married for over 20 years and it was, and as bad as, because it was great, and then it kind of just crash landed. And as bad as it was, I can look back and go, he was really good for a long time. And then it like just, holy moly, this is bad.
Yeah.
But I had a choice. I could have hated him, but he was my best friend. And, it sucked that it had to happen. But at the end of the day, I can't hate him.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, I mean, when you're going through a divorce, at one point you loved each other, and you go through a divorce, and obviously people grow apart. But at the end of the day, you still have, an obligation if you have kids involved to be
And
there.
we didn't have kids. Yeah, I didn't have kids with him. And that was that said a lot. I wanted to just, I only had one son and I wanted to give him a good start.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a shock, but at the same time, you kind of see like that relationship served a purpose.
Hmm.
And a lot of our relationships do. And, I mean, I can get really transparent and say, look, I married someone older. He was 14 years older. I thought I would find stability and the things that I didn't get in childhood because that's what we seek out. I married a pilot. So we always used to joke. He was my best friend. We joke, I'm like, only a pilot would handle all this baggage. Because when you don't know you're alienated, it's like, it's almost like funny things will happen or weird things. You're always like colliding with your past. So we were always like, just, God, that was messed up. Like, do I have a bad mom or what's wrong with my dad? You're always trying to figure it out. It takes your childhood and then it kind of takes your adulthood. So, in essence, my ex-husband now, he did more for me than my own parents.
Yeah.
When you pull back the layers and, and so I'm grateful for that. But when you really pull back the layers, it's like, okay, all you older men dating younger women. I married my mom and my dad. Shit. Oh my God. Like when you pull back, because that's not what it felt like in the marriage. But when you really pull back the layers, it was like he was steady, he was calm, he helped. He was a really good partner until he wasn't. So yeah, goes back to childhood.
Do you think you were kind of searching for that stability with him that you probably didn't have with your father?
Here's the brutal truth. Ready? Oh boy, I'm gonna get brutal here. I'm just gonna get honest. Oh shoot.
Just do it. Just
Okay,
rip the band-aid.
there we go. Because okay. My first marriage was to my husband's father. We were high school sweethearts. And is parts of us were great together. We were so young and immature. We were in the military. He was in the military, right? He was 19 when he became a dad. We were both young parents, but we loved our son. And I look at my ex-husband and I'm glad he's my dad's mom. Like there's nothing like, maybe my son would like say things, because parents just when parents divorce, it's awkward. And he's happily married and I have a lot of respect for his wife and my son's step mom and his little brother. But if I could go back, I should have just stayed. honest to God. I just wasn't prepared. I had no idea I had been alienated, and we would have killed each other, honestly, because we were just too young and a lot of growing up to do.
So you
Even, yeah, a
your
lot of
audio
growing up.
had kind of cut out at the beginning. You said you married who now? What was his relation?
Oh, so my first husband, I married right out of high school.
Okay,
That
so
was
your
my high
high.
school sweetheart. That
Yep.
is my son's father. So I guess what I'm saying is I wish that I would have known the importance of divorce, all the things that I lacked,
Yeah.
because I wish I could have had 10 sons like my son or different. Like
Yeah.
I really truly do. I do regret now looking back now, I was grateful for the 20 years I had with my husband, Greg, who was my second husband. That's the relationship that lasted the longest. But I wish I would have stayed with my husband instead.
Next thing I want to ask you about is the Stephood Project. So
Mhm.
educate our listeners on what you're doing with that.
So I started the Stephood Project. Whew, I mean, I've been trying to figure out a way to bring this, uh, just what's the best way? Just disaster of what's happening to our families.
Childhood, what is it you call it? Childhood trauma educator.
Yeah, childhood trauma educator, but also like, a kid who grew up divorced to get divorced only to prove how bad divorce is. So and it doesn't have to be bad. It's just
Right.
the behaviors that were, parents. So the
Dictated
Stepford
based off the
Project is
parents.
what I started. Yes, it's the dangers and consequences of not co-parenting, like really what happens because we're just normalizing it. So yeah, it's just an awareness campaign, and along with my book, which is called Alienated: When Parents Won't Parent, and I think that's gonna should be getting ready to get out in the stores and Amazon, except for Target.
Okay. Oh, so help me if I find it at Target.
I'm kidding. Ever, wherever, if you're a person that is going through a divorce, you've been an alienated parent, or you don't want to be an alienated parent, like what's the best thing to not do? Cautionary tale right over here. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what this is about. And I very grateful, happy, usually go lucky person, just trying to. So I just had to turn on my Wi-Fi on my phone. Oh my God. Oh, so hard. It's so weird going through a divorce. I'm already divorced, but having a whole new life, you're trying to own your truth, which is really hard. And then you're so used to having a person there doing everything for you, which was, my ex. So this stuff is always like,
Oh yeah.
oh, oh yeah, it's
Well,
like this stuff. And I'm afraid of like the all this, technology. It's a little fearful.
one thing I do like that, speaking of, it can be fearful, but I like what you're doing is the fact that you decided to write a book based on what you went through and being able to say, like, look, I was not perfect at this. I had, as you said earlier, my baggage that, I didn't get checked. And now, once you've been able to talk to someone and look back, I always said the beauty of hindsight is one of the most beautiful things in this world because we can look back and see from lessons learned. And the fact that you're doing a book versus what a lot of people do, where it's, well, here's my 35 steps to living perfect and being the best leader ever. And you read those, and it's, I'm not going to say a lot of authors out there, but there's some people that it's like, you've never really led, you've never really been through trauma. Uh,
Right.
I would rather trust a black and blue person than one that's unscathed. And
Right.
so I definitely think that's awesome. Kudos for doing that. What is your book titled?
It's called Alienated: When Parents Won't Parent.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I can guarantee you there's way more nasty divorces than clean ones. Yeah,
Oh,
because emotions are involved. I doubt there's someone who says, you know what, this isn't working out. Well, you know what? Yeah, I agree. We're going to make this as clean as possible. You start getting money and kids involved, you start seeing some sides of people. Um, yeah, whenever the book comes out, we will have it posted on our episode description. We'll also have it posted on the podcast. And end of the day, when all is said and done, because you mentioned you had like a 40-year journey of just unraveling childhood trauma. What do you want your legacy to be?
That no matter what we go through, whether it's in childhood or now in adulthood, that these are that life is traumatic, but we are equipped to handle the traumatic.
Yeah.
The bad things that happen to us don't define us. They, does it suck? Yes. But bringing it in the light and saying, hey, this isn't normal. There's a better way. I think maybe just being known for just being brave enough to say enough, like we got to do better as a society. That's what, like civilization is, like to be civil to one another. To actually, like, you don't have to like your new stepmom or the ex-wife, but it's the same thing. What do you want your kids to see?
Yeah.
Because they're always watching, and they'll be the first, especially as you get older and your kids start
Piecing it together.
like, oh my god, they just acted, and you don't like the way they're sounding. Well, guess where they learned that from?
Yeah.
And when I would hopefully I would want all that hate and evil and shit that, not just me, but many of us are going through, that it serves a purpose for the parents and the families that don't want to continue this BS into their legacy.
Yeah. What final comments you got for our listeners?
That time is so precious and you can't buy it. Once it's gone, it's gone. And how do you want your kids and the people that you love, how do you want them to remember you? Do you want them to remember you by wishing you had more time, or do you want them to have the memories that fills that time?
Yeah. Well, we will have all of the links that you have gone over here at Stephood Project. We'll also have your book link in the episode description for this one. I can't thank you enough for taking time to do this. And folks, I want to thank all of y'all for taking time to listen to this episode. If you like what we're doing here, head over to theshadowspodcast.com. You can leave a review. You can also leave one under Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Those really do help out. They help out a lot, continuing to get the word out there. Great stories such as what you just heard, so others can learn from the experiences of other people. And also, definitely sign up if you've not already done so. Head over to theshadowspodcast.com, get on our mailing list. We're starting to do newsletters where we have a mental health challenge each week, preview the upcoming episode, recap the past episode, also provide some quotes and stuff in there. So it's very beneficial stuff, something we've put together to work on those. Like I said, I like to work on those pecs, that physical, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual domains that we have. Until next week, we'll see you on another episode of the Shadows Podcast.